Have you ever wondered what happened to Gunsmoke star Ken Curtis after he finished playing the beloved Fessus Hagen? His real life was full of unexpected turns, an abandoned house, family problems, and a fortune left behind. What happened to his wife and children, and how did his life end in such a heartbreaking way? Stay with us as we reveal the untold story of Ken Curtis's amazing Hollywood journey and the mystery surrounding his last years. Curtis's abandoned house sits on top of a rolling hill, surrounded by tall trees and overgrown bushes. The house holds faded memories of Gunsmoke star Ken Curtis's life. It was once a place of warmth and family, but now it stands as a haunting reminder of the past. The weathered exterior, with sagging wooden beams and a roof that is slowly giving way, tells a story of time and neglect. However, despite its state, the house still has the aura of a man who left an indelible mark on Hollywood. Inside the grand entrance, worn-out wooden doors, dusty furniture, and shards of a life once lived are spread out on the faded carpets and peeling paint. A whisper of memories long forgotten. This was once a home full of laughter, music, and the presence of a TV star whose rough charm made him a fan favorite. This second room downstairs, though worn by time, still holds traces of its former elegance. Large sash windows let natural light in, lighting up the faded walls. The fireplace leads to a small bathroom, and the simple fixtures are now relics of a bygone era. Ken Curtis's home wasn't just a place of comfort. It was also a record of his rise from a small-town boy in Colorado to a famous Hollywood star. The materials used to build the house came from an older building. Just like Curtis himself changed careers from a singer in the Sons of the Pioneers to an unforgettable presence on Gunsmoke during its peak. The house would have been filled with warmth and love. Curtis Wayne Gates was born in 1916 and grew up on a ranch, but he was drawn to entertainment. He went from radio and movies to his most famous role as Jesus Hagen. At home, he shared a life with his wife Tori Arn Curtis, a horse trainer who was by his side until the end. The couple never had children, but Curtis stayed close to family and friends and left behind a legacy that goes far beyond his Hollywood fame. The house still has shelves. The old bookshelves and dangling chandeliers make the room feel like it's frozen in time. The once cozy kitchen is now worn and in bad shape, but it was probably a lively place where people shared stories over meals. Upstairs, the wooden paneling on the walls and ceiling gives it a timeless charm despite the wear and tear. Ken Curtis's home was a reflection of his life, simple but full of stories. He was best known for his role as Festus Hagen on Gunsmoke, but he had a lot more to offer. He had a successful career in music, movies, and TV. He grew up in a family that valued hard work and persistence. His father, Dan Gates, was sheriff, so young Ken got to see first, and the tough cops he would later play on screen. This now falling apartment may have been a peaceful retreat where Curtis went to relax after long days on set. The bedroom, though in bad shape, still has hints of its former grandeur with its large windows and classical proportions. The peeling ceiling tells a story of years of neglect, similar to forgotten parts of Hollywood's golden age. Throughout his career, Curtis stayed grounded and never lost touch with his roots. He dealt with life's ups and downs with the same toughness that his Gunsmoke character did on the dusty streets of Dodge City. While Fessus was known for his rough-edged humor, Curtis was a refined man who was deeply passionate about music. His early days as a singer in the Sons of the Pioneers shaped his artistic journey, combining his love of westerns with his love of music. He told stories in a smooth baritone voice, and this house, like Curtis himself, was more than it seemed. The large windows gave him a view of the surrounding landscape. The sunroom, which has been worn down by time, was likely a quiet place for him to reflect on a life well lived. Interestingly, this land has a history that goes back before Curtis's time. Union soldiers are thought to have camped on this hill the night before the Civil War. The Battle of Columbus, the last major land battle of the Civil War, happened in 1865. It was a fitting connection for a man who would go on to play the Old West in one of America's most beloved TV shows. A peaceful place to rest and reflect. You can picture Ken Curtis sitting in a rocking chair like this one and enjoying the peaceful scenery. Even though the ceiling is falling apart and the windows are broken, this airy space must have once been a welcoming retreat, just like Curtis, who was best known as Fessus Hagen on Gunsmoke. He found comfort in the wide, open plains of the West, which he played so well on screen. With a little work, this place could regain its old charm. The rounded corner of this house and its curved porch make it a great spot to take in the view. Over time, nature has started to take back parts of the home, with vines growing up the brick columns, but in its prime, this would have been a peaceful place to relax. Curtis's own life was full of contrasts. He played a rough-edged cowboy, but he was actually a very different person. Before Gunsmoke, he was the lead singer for the Sons of the Pioneers, one of the most famous Western music groups of all time. The swing chair on the downstairs porch was probably a relaxing place to watch the birds and listen to the wind blowing through the trees. Now that the wood is worn and weathered, the light fixtures are rusted, and the windows are missing glass, it's a reminder of how time moves on and leaves behind memories of the people who once lived here. Later in life, Curtis continued to honor the legacy. He was a star in Western movies and even produced his own. He had a lifelong love for telling stories through music, movies, and TV. This house, like his career, has seen better days, but its spirit lives on. Interestingly, the land on which this house stands has a long history. It is thought that Union soldiers camped on this hill the night before the Battle of Columbus in 1865, which was the last major land battle of the Civil War. It was the perfect setting for a man who spent his career bringing the Wild West to the big screen. Even though time has worn it down, this house is a reminder of a bygone era, much like the Westerns Ken Curtis helped define. Its story lives on, just as Curtis's legacy does in the hearts of those who grew up watching Gunsmoke. Ken Curtis' net worth. When he died on April 28, 1991, he left behind not only a memorable career, but also a legacy in film and TV. He was worth an estimated $5 million from acting, singing, and producing, and his long-running role as he played Festus Hagen on Gunsmoke from 1959 to 1975, which was a major contribution. He also made many guest appearances on other popular TV shows and had parts in both Western and non-Western films. In addition to acting, Curtis was also a producer, which increased his influence in the industry. He was a key part of making Gunsmoke's 20th reunion TV movie happen in 1987 and worked on other Western-themed movies. His ability to balance on-screen performances with executive behind-the-scenes work helped him build his career and wealth. Who was the Gunsmoke actor with the biggest net worth? The main recurring cast of the classic Western TV show Gunsmoke included James Arras, Amanda Blake, Milbourne Stone, Dennis Weaver, Burt Reynolds, Ken Curtis, and Buck Taylor. Their time on the show varied, but Arras, Stone, and Weaver were all there when the show first aired in 1955. At the time of his death, Dennis Weaver had the biggest net worth. According to Celebrity Net Worth, he was worth $16 million, even though he left Gunsmoke after season 9 to pursue other acting opportunities. In addition to playing Chester Good, James Arnest was the show's second most popular lead, playing Marshal Matt Dillon for all 20 seasons. At the time of his death in 2011, Celebrity Net Worth estimated his wealth to be $8 million. Even after the show ended, Aries returned for 5 made-for-TV Gunsmoke movies, which solidified the show's legacy. Ken Curtis, who played Fessus Hagen, and Buck Taylor, who played Newly O'Brien, were tied for the next highest net worth. Both were said to have had a net worth of $5 million. Curtis died in 1991 and Taylor died in 2018. According to Celebrity Net Worth, Burt Reynolds, who played Quinta Spur from seasons 8 to 10, had a net worth of $3 million when he died in 2018. Milbourne Stone, who played Doc Adams with Reynolds for all 20 seasons, had a net worth of $600,000 when he died in 2018. If you adjust for today's prices, Anda Blake, better known as Miss Kitty, had a net worth of about $500,000 when she died in 1989, which is about $2 million today. She was on Gunsmoke for 19 seasons and became one of the show's most beloved characters. Ken Curtis went from being the youngest of 3 boys in Lamar, Colorado, to becoming a famous actor. He spent the first 10 years of his life on a ranch along Muddy Creek in eastern Bend County. In 1926, Curtis's family moved to Los Angeles, which is the county seat of Bend County, because his father, Dan Sullivan Gates, ran for and was elected sheriff. He served in that position from 1926 to 1931. While he was in high school at Bend County High School, Curtis showed off his athletic and musical skills by playing quarterback for the football team and as a Martinist in the school band. He graduated in 1935 and later served in the U.S. Army from 1943 to 1945 during World War II. Initially, he went to Colorado College, but soon dropped out to follow his passion for music. His singing career took off before he switched to acting, eventually combining the two skills. When he started working in movies in 1941, he joined Tom Dorsey's band as a vocalist, filling in for Frank Sinatra until Dick Hayes took over in 1942. Dorsey suggested that he change his name to Ken Curtis. Later, Curtis joined Shep Fields and his new music band, which didn't have any brass instruments because they were under contract. Curtis met actress Lorraine Page at Universal Studios and married her in 1943. By 1948, he was a featured singer and host on the WWVA Jamir, a long-running country music radio show. Curtis's musical journey continued when he became the lead singer for the legendary Western music group, the Sons of the Pioneers. He performed with them from 1949 to 1953, and again from 1955 to 1957. During his time with the group, he wrote several hit songs, such as Room Full of Roses and Ghost Riders in the Sky. 1945. Ken Curtis signed a contract with Columbia Pictures to be in a series of musical westerns where he played the singing cowboy and romantic lead, often working with the Hoover Hot Shots. Curtis's career took a big turn when he married John Ford's daughter Barbara, which put him in touch with Ford and John Wayne and led to working with them on projects like Rio Grande, where he played a part in the made-up band The Regimental Singers. Ford's most famous roles were as Charlie McCry in The Searchers, as well as parts in The Quiet Man, The Wings of Eagles, The Horse Soldiers, The Alamo, and How the West Was Won. He also played Mr. Roberts in the classic Navy comedy, along with Henry Fonda, James Cagney, William Powell, and Jack Lemmon Curtis. Ford was in all 3 films produced by Cornelius Vanderbilt Whitney, The Searchers, The Missouri Traveler, and The Searchers. In 1957, he made an uncredited appearance as FBI agent Jim Anderson in 5 Steps to Danger. That same year, he produced 2 low-budget cult monster movies called The Killer Shrews and The Giant Gila Monster. His TV career was just as busy. He starred 5 times on the hit Western series Have Gun, Will Travel with Richard Boone. In 1959, he played cowboy Phil Jake in an episode of Gunsmoke, a show he would later become a regular cast member. Curtis also made a guest appearance on Perry Mason as circus performer Tim Durant in the episode The Case of the Clumsy Clown, which aired on November 5, 1960. From 1961 to 1963, he co-starred with Larry Pannell as Ted McKeever in the action-adventure show Rip Cord. The show ran for 76 episodes and helped make sport parachuting popular. In 1964, he played a mule in an episode of Death Valley Days called Graydon's Charge. Gunsmoke, Ken Curtis is best known for his role as Festus Hagen, the scruffy but endearing deputy on the show. He joined in 1964, replacing Dennis Weaver's character Chester Good, and over the course of 11 seasons and 304 episodes, Festus became the longest, serving of Marshal Matt Dillon's 5 deputies. The character of Festus was based on a real person from Curtis' childhood in Los Alamos, Colorado, named Frederick Mohammed, better known as Cedar. Jack Munden, who lived about 15 miles outside of town, made a living by cutting cedar fence posts. He was famous for drinking too much and ending up in the local jail, which was run by Curtis's father. Curtis based a lot of Festus's behavior and thick rural twang on Cedar Jack, though the accent he used on Gunsmoke was very different from his real voice. When he wasn't working on the show, Curtis loved his Western persona and performed at rodeos, fairs, and Western-themed stage shows all over the country. He was in politics during Gunsmoke's run and for years after it ended. In 1976, he volunteered to help Ronald Reagan win the Republican nomination against President Gerald Ford. Curtis's TV career continued after Gunsmoke. He played a retired police detective on Carroll O'Connor's In the Heat of the Night, which was an interesting turn of events since O'Connor had been a guest on Gunsmoke. Curtis also provided the voice for Disney's 1973 animated classic in the 1980s. He voiced Robin Hood's Vulture and later returned to TV in the short-lived Western drama Yellow Rose, where he shared many of his scenes with veteran actor Noah Bajor. The two actors stayed in touch to varying degrees, even though they were both successful. The stars of Gunsmoke never let ego get in the way of their work. Unlike many TV shows that have drama behind the scenes, the cast maintained a close-knit family, like bond that lasted for years. Their connection grew so strong that at one point a producer wanted to make a Gunsmoke retrospective, but scheduling issues kept it from happening. Even after the show ended, some of the original cast members kept in touch. James Arness, who was known for being private, usually avoided the spotlight and kept his personal life separate from the show's publicity. That didn't stop him from sometimes getting back in touch with his former co-stars. Ken Curtis lived in a real-life jail with notorious outlaws long before he played Festus Hagen. Festus Hagen on Gunsmoke made him famous, but he didn't know that his childhood would help shape the role that made him famous. Before he moved to the made-up town of Dodge City, Curtis worked in a real jail and met many famous outlaws. Curtis played Festus Hagen for the first time in Season 8, Episode 13 of Gunsmoke, which was called Us Hagen. His character was introduced as a rough-and-tumble man who wanted revenge against his uncle for killing his brother. But U.S. Marshal Matt Dillon James Arnes led him in a different direction, and over time, the two became close friends. Curtis played Festus for the rest of the show's 20 seasons, becoming a series regular when Dennis Weaver, who played Chester Good, left to work on other projects. Festus filled the void, adding a new dynamic to the show and becoming a fan favorite. In an interview with Bet Roga for the University of Dayton's YouTube channel, Curtis confirmed that he had quit smoking, had grown up in a jail. When asked about it, he excitedly replied, "You bet sure did, Betty." His father was the sheriff of Baca County, Colorado, and Curtis worked as a turnkey from a young age to help manage the inmates. At first, he found it exciting, but over time it became just another part of life. His father's job was just a way to make money, especially during the hard years of the Great Depression. However, the jail housed some of the most notorious criminals of the time. As a child, criminals like Bonnie and Clyde and Babyface Nelson were in the news. And his father's jail even held members of the gang responsible for one of the most famous bank robberies in Western history. This was long before Jesus became Marshal Dillon's loyal sidekick, and Curtis was already learning about law and order by helping feed the prisoners in his father's jail. In 1981, Ken Curtis was inducted into the Western Performers Hall of Fame. The last time he acted was in 1991, when he played the aging cattle rancher Seaborn Tay in the TV version of Kniger, which was based on the novel by Lou Moore. Sam Elliott played the lead role, and Curtis's Gunsmoke co-star Buck Taylor, who played newlywed O'Brien on the long-running series, played a bad guy. Buck Taylor's father, Dub Taylor, also had a small part in the production. Curtis married Tori Connolly in 1966, and the couple stayed together. He had 2 stepchildren from the marriage until he died in 1991. Today, a statue of Curtis as his beloved Gunsmoke character Festus Hagen stands at 430 Pulaski Avenue in Clovis, California, in front of the Educational Employees Credit Union. In his later years, Curtis made Clovis his home. He was a Republican and publicly supported Barry Goldwater in the 1964 U.S. presidential election. He died in his sleep on April 28, 1991, in Fresno, California, after having a heart attack. He was cremated. His body was spread out in the Colorado flatlands, a fitting tribute to the wide open landscapes he had known since childhood. Fun facts about Ken Curtis: the character of Festus Hagen was based on a real person named Cedar Jack. When Curtis was a child, he knew the local drifter who lived on the outskirts of town and often ended up in his father's jail. Cedar Jack was like a mix between Ernest T. Bass from Andy Griffith's shows and Otis Campbell. He was rough around the edges but memorable. His Nacy twang and unique mannerisms stuck with Curtis, who later used them in his role as Jesus. Before becoming a Western TV icon, Curtis had a successful music career, even filling in for some legendary performers. In the early 1940s, he joined the Tommy Dorsey Band as a singer, taking over a role that had been held by Frank Sinatra. Not long after, he switched to cowboy music and became the lead singer for the Sons of the Pioneers in 1949. The band had already launched. Curtis made his name by lending his voice to hits like Room Full of Roses. He also had close ties to Hollywood royalty. From 1952 to 1964, he was married to Barbara Ford, the daughter of legendary director John Ford. Ford was known for creating the American Western genre with classics like Stagecoach and The Searchers, and he often cast Curtis in his movies. Curtis was in Mr. Roberts, The Wings of Eagles, The Last Hara 2 Road, and many other Ford productions, often with John Wayne. Later in life, Curtis moved to Clovis, California, which is in Fresno County. Today, his legacy lives on through gunpowder smoke and a statue. If you go to the Educational Employees Credit Union in Clovis, you'll see a statue of Festus Hagen standing proudly behind a short black fence. It's a fitting tribute to the actor who played the role. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. If you liked it and want to see more, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. Get a message when the next video comes out. See you soon.